Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news coming out of the transfer portal for Oklahoma Sooner fans as former USC and Florida offensive tackle Michael Tarquin commits to Oklahoma. And this is a massive get for Oklahoma. We talked about a transfer portal wish list for the Oklahoma Sooners heading into this cycle, and we said the offensive line needed to be a top priority for Coach Brent Venables in this Oklahoma program. And a guy like Michael Tarquin, who has starting experience both at USC in the Pac-12 and in the SEC with the Florida Gators, is massive. And we've had this conversation. It is hard to find starting caliber offensive tackles that are available in the transfer portal, and it's even harder to land those guys. And the Oklahoma Sooners land a guy in Michael Tarquin who I think can provide an extremely high floor for what this Oklahoma offensive line group will look like in 2024. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support the Oklahoma fans have shown the boys during this transfer portal cycle has truly been amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll continue to break down as many of these Oklahoma commitments as we can. Appreciate you guys. And without further ado, let's get into Michael Tarquin. What I want to talk about with Michael Tarquin is this is a guy that has started a ton of games at the Power 5 level, both at his time at USC and his time at the Florida Gators. And at USC in 2023, he was a solid offensive tackle, but I think there's still some meat left on the bone in terms of what he can be as an offensive tackle for the Oklahoma Sooners. You look at that 2023 year for Michael Tarquin, 213 pass blocking opportunities, 14 pressures, 3 sacks given up for USC in 2023. Now, those are solid numbers. I don't think they're elite numbers. You go back to 2022 with his time at the Florida Gators at the SEC level. I mean, he had a phenomenal year in 2022 where he faced 164 pass blocking opportunities, 5 pressures, and 0 sacks. Started the last 6 games for the Florida Gators in that 2022 year. And you look at Michael Tarquin 12 months ago, I remember talking about Michael Tarquin committing to USC as a massive pickup for the Trojans because he was one of the better performing offensive tackles that we saw in the SEC in that 2022 year. If Oklahoma and Coach Bill B can get Michael Tarquin back to that form that he had in the 2022 season with the Florida Gators, you are getting a quality starting offensive tackle for Oklahoma. And you look at Michael Tarquin, I don't think there's a better spot for him to go to than this Oklahoma program, where the development on the offensive line has been pretty much one of the best that we've seen across the entire country. A massive get for the Sooners, not only a starting caliber tackle coming in, but continuing to add to that depth that this Oklahoma offensive line had. And again, we were talking 4 weeks ago about this being a major concern for Oklahoma. What was this offensive line going to look like in 2024? Obviously was not a very good performance in the bowl game against Arizona. Brent Venables, Coach Bill B have gotten to work in building the depth and talent of this Oklahoma offensive line. And you look at what Oklahoma has brought in, right? Michael Tarquin, in a very similar way we talk about Michael Tarquin, I think you can talk the same way about Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown's a guy that has a ton of starting experience coming from Michigan State, but like Michael Tarquin, there seems to be kind of, you're excited about the player you're getting. You're excited and more excited about what the player might be in 2024 with some added development. And so you bring in 2 guys in Spencer Brown and Michael Tarquin that can add to a ton of competition in depth to this Oklahoma offensive line. And it's worth noting Michael Tarquin has played guard at times as well, so he can kick in and play guard. And you're suddenly looking at this Oklahoma offensive line group and saying, there are a lot of bodies that we feel comfortable about trotting out in 2024, which was not a thing that you could say about Oklahoma 4 weeks ago as this transfer portal cycle has kicked off. And I talk about depth for a couple of reasons. One, you look at the best offensive lines across college football, the Georgia Bulldogs, the Michigan Wolverines. What makes those offensive lines so special is, yes, they have 5 really good starting offensive linemen, but more importantly, how do they get to those 5? They got 10 guys that they probably feel comfortable playing. And so you have that competitive depth and competition throughout spring and fall practices that leads to a very good starting 5 trotting out. You're starting to see Oklahoma build that competitive depth and competition that you'll see on this offensive line. And that's not to mention Daniel Akinkumi, guy like Eugene Brooks, sound like they can come in and also compete for early playing time for the Oklahoma Sooners as well. And there's one other guy I want to talk about real quick, and that is former 5-star offensive lineman Lance Hurd, who hit the portal. And for Oklahoma fans that have followed the last couple of weeks, when Lance Hurd hit the transfer portal, we hopped on and talked about Oklahoma as Lance Hurd suddenly becomes kind of the crown jewel for the Oklahoma Sooners in this transfer portal. And you look at Lance Hurd, why he's transferring from LSU. It's not because he can't play at the SEC level. He played phenomenal as a true freshman. He's transferring because he wants to go play tackle. And you look at that LSU roster, you have 2 young offensive tackles who are NFL guys. They're just not old enough to go to the NFL. So Lance Hurd hits the portal looking for an opportunity to start at offensive tackle. He suddenly becomes, in my mind, a top target for Oklahoma. Then you get the news late last night that he's going to take 2 visits to Tennessee and to Oklahoma. And so Oklahoma pouring their resources into getting a guy like Lance Hurd would be absolutely massive. And you talk about the loss of a late Caden Green. I mean, I'll say this right now. I think Lance Hurd is probably an upgrade from Caden Green. And Caden Green played some very good football for Oklahoma as a true freshman. Lance Hurd, former 5-star prospect from that 2023 class, not only does he have a ton of eligibility left to be developed for Oklahoma, but a guy that could come in that 2024 year and start immediately. You look at this offensive line group, and I think it's a masterclass by Brent Venables. Now, he's getting aggressive in the transfer portal. He's upgrading this roster, but he took a look at where specifically do we need to get better immediately heading into 2024. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to get guys developed because we're starting Jackson Arnold going into his second year of college football. We have the weapons on the outside, guys like Angelo Anthony coming back, Deion Burks in the portal, Nick Anderson. That's a good wide receiver room. Jackson Arnold has the weapons to succeed at the SEC level. Now you got to make sure he's protected. And some of the problems that you saw Jackson Arnold have against Arizona, I think were a result of an offensive line that really struggled to protect him. And so you're looking at Brent Venables and the staff saying, we need to address the offensive line. We're going to do it in the transfer portal. And the transfer portal represents an avenue to get guys who can immediately impact your roster in 2024. That's exactly what Brent Venables and the staff are doing. Michael Tarquin, Spencer Brown, potentially a guy like Lance Hurd as well. Massive additions for this Oklahoma roster. We'll continue to monitor Oklahoma, what they're doing in the portal. We'll have a lot more to talk about. Appreciate the Oklahoma fans rocking with the boys, though. You guys have continued to show a ton of support. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.